It was supposed to be only just a fun night with me and with my friend, a good friend and I. I went into the theater, grabbed a seat, which ended up to be, I was sitting in the second row, probably 4 seats away from the right aisle where people usually enter from. Another guy walked in after me, sat in front of me in the front row, probably to the far right seat, and I noticed he got a phone call. Most people, when they get phone calls, they would take it out into the lobby, but this person directly went to the emergency exit. And on the phone the entire time, he was propping the door open with his foot, and he was and it looked like he was directing somebody to come towards his direction. And I didn't think anything of it at first, but after a while, once the movie started and my friend and I got situated, about 15-20 minutes into the film, the back emergency door swung right open. I walked into the theater, probably 5'8", 5'9", wearing all black, and he was wearing a gas mask, all suited up in armor. It had a rifle around his neck, and he threw a canister into the audience behind me. And come to find out, once it exploded, it was a toxic gas. I wasn't too sure if it was tear gas, but either way, it was really hard to breathe in. Immediately, I went to the floor after it exploded, and then gunshots started taking place into the auditorium.
Corbin, let me interrupt you, and I hope you can hear me. I know it sounds like there's a lot of wind, a lot going on where you are, but you mentioned somebody sitting in the far right seat in the theater. The person on the phone goes to take the call at the exit door. Did they have the same build as the gunman? What are you saying? Do you think these are two different people or the same person?
I'm sorry, one more time.
So this person who you see on the phone goes to the exit door to take this phone call. The next thing you know, that this gunman comes in. Are these two different people?
If I'm making out what you're saying, yes, the person inside of the theater, yes, he went towards the emergency exit on a phone call, and it looked like he was directing somebody or looking for somebody to come to his specific location towards the back of the auditorium. And like I said, within 15 to 20 minutes, the door swung right open, and the guy came right inside, threw a gas canister into the audience, and started opening fire.
Corbin, I'm going to keep this conversation going, even though it's tough for you to hear me and vice versa, but this is so important. Do you remember what part of the movie was playing when this guy walks in, head-to-toe armor and a gas mask? Do you remember what scene was playing?
Well, according to other reports, it was right when all of the, basically, hell broke loose during the movie, when gunfire was happening. Very coincidental, being that, you tend to think that maybe it wasn't real, that it was part of the movie. So whoever planned this, whatever part of this operation that was planned, it was planned down to the T. I mean, if this was an actual operation for psychological warfare, it was efficient, it was effective, because then people would have thought that it was part of the movie, meaning that instead of people just bailing out of the theater room, they thought it was part of the movie, so more people got shot. You know, they got their magic numbers that they always give the body count. But remember this original article that came out on the 20th from Press TV that actually reported that the police were looking for another person. Police arrested a masked gunman wearing bulletproof vests and sunglasses and are searching for another, Oates added. This is Police Chief Dan Oates. And then in this article, 2 days later, he says that the Colorado shooter Holmes acted alone. So he could have been advised to not talk, that he only saw one person. It's like, no, but I saw two people. No, you saw one person. Oh, okay, In other words, you'll never be seen again. Your body will be found in a ditch if you come out saying there's two people. So, I mean, this is how this stuff works. I mean, it's pretty sad, but Pentagon shooter in Batman massacre was not a member of the U.S. military. So it says here, a Pentagon spokesman indicated that some members might have been killed or wounded in Colorado shooting at the Batman movie massacre. It says initial reports of the shooting indicate 12 people. It says here, Pentagon press secretary said it's not clear how many military casualties there were, or specifically whether they were killed or injured. So why would he be answering that question? People must have assumed that he was in the military because what? Well, he was well equipped. He was wearing SWAT team style clothing. Also, there is a base. The U.S. military operates a large Defense Department satellite intelligence operation at Buckley Air Force Base in Aurora. So the alleged shooter may not have been part of the military, but it says here Colorado shooter's father, Robert Holmes, authored U.S. Navy military reports. So it says here that the author was Navy Personnel Research and Development Center at San Diego, California, Holmes, Robert M. Holmes. And then we have, it's actually from Slate, SWAT gear, scariest part of James Holmes' arsenal, a bullet-stopping armor online. And that's like other individuals as well, these lone shooters. They have body armor and fully loaded with shotguns, assault rifles, and pistols. In other words, Colorado shooter had more in common with paramilitary cops than Batman. Let's not forget Breivik. I mean, this guy wasn't some just backwoods, dude. I mean, look at this gear he had. Again, there was also reports about him actually being escorted by helicopter when the whole shooting was going on. Then we have bizarre behavior kept gun club owner from letting alleged shooter James Holmes in. His behavior and activities. Oh, it's interesting. Now they're giving him 3 names, like John Wilkes Booth or James Earl Ray or Lee Harvey Oswald. Behavior and activities in the weeks before the Aurora Theater shooting made neighbors and others take notice. It was this deep, guttural voice rambling something incoherent, Rakovich said. I thought, what is this idiot trying to be? Yeah, it also, just to make a quick side note, it doesn't make any sense that he would tell the authorities that he has explosives in his apartment and booby trap it if he sets booby traps to get them. And right now the mainstream media is pretty much conceding that this individual is most likely drugged in court without saying it. Accused Colorado shooter James Holmes is dazed in court. So, and if you take a brief look at this right here, you can see his kind of head bobbing. It could just be that he's so tired, maybe he hasn't got any sleep, but I don't know, the way his eyes are moving and stuff like that, he seems more like he's just drugged and subdued. But again, this fits a pattern of other individuals who have been outside the mainstream media, pretty much known as patsies. Mind Control, MK Ultra, Project Monarch, whatever you want to call it, patsies. Remember this individual, Jared Lee Loughner, suspect in Arizona shootings, remains calm, quiet at the Tucson hearing. He was quiet and emotionless, mostly sat during the federal court hearing on his mental health. Remember the Fort Hood shooter, the suspect seemed cool, calm, and religious. So this individual, they kind of had an idea that he was not mentally stable. They were going to deploy him again. He said he didn't want to deploy after what he had seen, but they did it anyway. So this is a pattern here. Ohio shooting suspect emotionless in court. This is a Ohio shooting suspect T.J. Lane's first day in court. Then our buddy Norway shooter calmly recounts killing. So yeah, he was going on talking about he was a self-styled crusader without any sign of emotion. Followed by this individual I was talking to you about, Pentagon shooter from, I believe it was 2009, John Patrick Bedell. He walked up very cool. He had no real emotion on his face. The Pentagon officers returned fire with the semi-automatic weapons. This individual's family had already warned officials prior to this, months, within weeks, about him. And then to the Christmas Day bomber, Mutalib, if you remember that, says here passenger Daniel Husinga has verified much of Haskell's account. That's Kurt Haskell. He was a lawyer there. It says here in an interview with Fox, he went further describing the bomber's behavior as the scariest part of the whole experience was looking into his eyes, seeing no emotion, no anger, no fear, just a blank stare, blank expression. These are similar terms that Robert Kennedy's alleged assassin, Sirhan Sirhan, was described, and many researchers have concluded that Sirhan was a hypnotized, programmed assassin. I tend to wonder if he was just someone that was a diversion and somebody else actually shot him. RFK, that is. Same thing with this theater, it wasn't actually him that did the shooting, it was somebody else. And if you remember the Virginia Tech shooting, again with a nice magic number 33, we go down and we notice what? He's about around the same age, 19, 25 years old. He had a very serious but very calm look on his face. And you guys remember this? What was this, 2006? Is that what it was? No way. Gunman reportedly bent on revenge kills girl's self at Amish school. Was that already 6 years since then? But if you scroll down, you can actually see it says, Robert seemed calm, if a bit subdued, Miller said, not agitated. And you remember this Connecticut killer was calm before shootings. They said Omar Thornton began shooting at his office as he'd given the choice to be fired or resign. Oh, and again, just a quick side note to tie this in with what I was saying about having these handlers or something. And this is from the Virginia Tech story. An off-campus man who knew one of the victims is a person of interest to the police and has been cooperating, though he is not in custody. Another pattern that comes up is what? That they're a loner, a lone wolf shooter. A Denver shooter was a loner, but he was a brilliant student. Then we have Jared Loughner, remember him from Arizona? He was also a loner. Said here, was described by friends and neighbors as a disturbed, pot-smoking loner who lived with his parents. Remember that. Then we move on to former UC classmates describe Colorado shooter as a nice guy. He was a nice guy. Virginia Tech gunman described by Radford classmate as a typical college kid. And back to the Pentagon shooter, John Patrick Bedell, they said what? He had a troubled past and run-ins with the law. They also said that he was very well dressed when he went in there. But he said what? Police said that he may have uttered something before opening fire, but what he said was unclear. He was very calm. There was no distress. And people that knew him were surprised. They said that's going to sound bizarre, but he was a very, very gentle young man. I mean, I never associated him with any violence on any level. Oh yeah, and he was on to conspiracy theories, 9/11. The Colorado shooting suspect struggled to find work, neighbor says. And so I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that this is part of programming. That basically, like this individual right here, California shooter from what, 2011, who killed 8 people. He said what? He didn't have it easy, says the step uncle. So this is programming for people out there that are going through a hard time, can't find work, to resort to this type of violence and just go ahead and kill all these innocent people. And they usually kill themselves, so it's kind of rare when you see these individuals do these type acts, and then all of a sudden they're still alive. But it makes sense that they would have to discredit these individuals for whatever reason, saying they're mental, they had financial problems, whatever, you know. Because if they do decide to somehow get their memories back, or they remember, oh yeah, there was a guy around there, or, you know, I did get a call from somebody. I do remember this one guy that I was hanging out with a while back, and when those memories start to come to surface, then they can discredit them, so they don't talk. So either A, they get the death penalty, or B, they get locked up and thrown away. You never hear about them again. So the governor of Colorado and the mayor of Aurora say what? This was an act of a deranged mind. Pentagon shooter had history of mental illness. Oh, and you know, the internet's bad too. So Colorado shooting suspect used internet to get his arsenal. That's right. Just like this individual, the Gunman, Pentagon shooter, he made copious and often rambling postings and recorded lectures on the internet in the past few years. It says here the mystery of James Holmes' missing Facebook account. So this individual used the internet for all this stuff, and then what? Said although Holmes was apparently a gifted scientist, says he was a loner who oddly, for a young scientist, seemed to have no internet presence. Then there was this release from Department of Homeland Security, a warning basically, terrorists interested in attacking theaters and similar mass gatherings. They got this because it happened in Somalia from Al-Shabaab. And, you know, it was basically overlooked or was, not taken seriously. And with good reason, because what? Because majority of these type attacks were going to be what? Carried out by the government or black ops. So they probably borrowed the idea from Al-Shabaab in Somalia and said, ooh, that's a good idea. Let's do that in the United States to instill fear or some political agenda. Warner Brothers pulls trailer of gangster shooting up movie theater. The movie contained a scene showing a gangster with a machine gun shooting up people in a movie theater from behind the big screen. And even though an act like this could probably never be avoided in the future and probably couldn't have been avoided in the past, shooting heightens concern at entertainment venues. So they're going to crack down on everybody else and implement even stricter security measures. So this Colorado University had a scenario that used to train students how to respond if a shooter fires at people in a movie theater. It's the only school that does this, so in other words, it's setting the template for the rest of the country. And although he wasn't Jewish, the killer worked at a Jewish camp in California, run or sponsored by the Jewish Big Brothers and Big Sisters and the Jewish Federation of LA, which are what? Zionists? Let's not forget the Norway shooter's Zionist streak, his embrace of Israel. And lastly, the French leader compares the Toulouse Patsy shooter attack to the Holocaust. Thank you.